Whoa, look at that cool intro. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Kil2. I got some more footage, kind of a lot of it actually. It's all kind of a mess, fraps badly, whatever, but I think it's good stuff, so I want to show you. Before I get into that, I wanted to mention I'm hosting a EVE player meet in Portland, Oregon on January 26th. If you're in the area and haven't heard about it yet, make sure to mail me in-game at the character Kil2 so that you can get details. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. We have people coming from out of state. We have maybe some giveaways. We have a lot of people coming, like 30 plus people hopefully, so should be fun. On with the battling. So I have two separate situations I'm going to show you. One of them is kind of extended solo roam. The first one is a duo roam, and there's so much I could say about it. This is one of those engagements that kept me up at night because I was trying to figure out how it could have gone better. I think it's one of the sorts of engagements that makes EVE so awesome, but at the same time can be so frustrating because I felt like it could have gone better. I made a lot of mistakes, but I wanted to share it with you guys because it just kind of helps me think through it and kind of gives me a way to use all the energy I spent on that. So before I start the clip, I guess all I can say is it's a duo roam. I'm in a Harbinger, a shield harp. It's kind of standard. I think it's pretty strong right now. And my gangmate's in a MOA, a very straightforward MOA, just dual extended scram web blaster MOA, which is also a very solid ship. And we have been sort of flying around this constellation that has a couple stations and sort of stirring the locals to defense, which is so common. It's like my favorite way to get fights started, and things are kind of brewing. But this particular engagement sort of stands out because it's all sort of tinted by the fact that they've shown some very, very nasty ships for a small gang like ours. And when the clip starts, you're going to see me warping away from a station that has a Basilisk, a Naga, a Cerberus, and a Hurricane. And the Basilisk basically means, with our damage, we're not going to kill anything within rep range of the Basilisk, which is like 60 or 70k, right? So we're kind of in trouble to begin with, and it crossed my mind to just not engage at all, these guys, because if they're going to show logistics before anything's even taken damage, who knows what else they have, and we probably can't break the logistics. But in any case, my plan is to burn off the station, and hopefully maybe, the Cerberus and the Naga gets too far away from the Basilisk to get repped, and we can kill it. But when I meant to tell my gangmate that it was time to start burning, I said go. He interpreted it as warp. That's my fault. It's very important to communicate effectively, and sometimes I don't. So he warps to our out gate, and so the clip starts. I'm going to start it right now. Starts as I'm, he's just left, and I'm kind of sad about it. But the only thing I can do really, especially because it's kind of a long warp, is just warp with him. I don't really want to fight by myself, and I also don't want to wait for him to warp back. So I just decided to warp to the gate that he warped to, and as you can see, it's like 70 AU. And it's fine. It's funny, on the spot I thought it was bad, but in retrospect I think it was good. So I'm going to warp, and then what I'm going to do is kind of hang out a second and see if anything follows. And for some reason I didn't think anything would, but the Naga does show up on scan. But keep in mind, I'm going to talk about this now so I don't have to talk about it during the fight. I think a Basilisk is coming too. A Basilisk had shown up on 2 different grids. It wasn't just at the station, but it was at the station there at the end. And I know we can't kill anything when the Basilisk is on grid. So my view of the whole engagement is sort of from that perspective, that there's going to be logistics that we can't deal with at some point. So that means our best option is either to separate something from the range the Basilisk's at, or what we end up going for, as the Naga shows up at the gate here, is killing something before the logistics get to the grid. There are a lot of ships in the game right now that have low enough effective HP that if you get the jump on them, there's not enough time for the support for those ships to organize. So we jump the gate here. I don't want to fight at 0 on this gate. It just puts us in a spot where we're going to die for sure because we're aggressed at 0 on a gate where everything's coming to help. We jump in here and there's a Rapier. So now there's 2 threats I can't deal with. To get away from the Basilisk, we need to kite, and to kite, we can't have the Rapier on grid. So I'm just depressed. I think we're going to lose already. But we start burning and shooting the Rapier, and just kind of hoping, maybe we can force the Rapier off, maybe we can get off the grid at least. But basically, I'm really pessimistic at this point. But that totally screws up the way I handle the engagement, because right here I'm thinking I need to kite, I need to get away from the web range of the Rapier so that I have mobility in the fight, so I don't get pinned in a brawl with a Basilisk on field. And the Naga starts chasing me, and then it looks like I'm going to make it out of web range. The Rapier doesn't approach me, so I'm actually burning, and he maybe only has 1 web on me. So I'm actually pulling range. So then I'm like, okay, we can go for the Naga. So another thing I don't notice here is the Naga actually isn't shooting me. He's locked me but isn't shooting. I don't know why. He's not shooting Hawk either. Hawk goes ahead and tackles him. and we just DPS the Naga, and I just keep burning, because I'm just thinking this grid is just going to get worse. There's Basilisk coming close in there, we're webbed by the Rapier, it's just a nightmare, I just need to burn and burn and burn. But I don't kind of notice the whole time that neither of us have taken any damage, and we basically just killed the Naga. And I think at this point, especially after the Rapier warps off right there, I should be looping back in towards the grid. And I did turn around right here, I guess, but I should have gone in more, because now what we have is a Talos. Hawk's at half HP, he's relatively close to the Talos. And my thought was, there's nothing here with the Scrammer web. Hawk needs to get off the grid, like he needs to burn away from the Talos and warp. So that's what I tell him to do. But in retrospect, he's not fast enough to do that. The Talos is just going to keep up with him and keep a point. But what he could have probably done is burned towards the Talos, tackled it, and then we might have had a shot at killing it. But you can see here, Hawk's kind of there in the middle of the grid, and he just died. I told him to try and burn towards the middle of the system, and I think the Talos just held a point easily on him, since they're about the same speed. So now the Talos turns its attention towards me. The rest of the ships are burning as well. The Cerberus you can see burning towards me, and I don't know if the Hurricane ends up doing that as well or not, but either way, they're both kind of irrelevant. I mean, the Cerberus is shooting me, but the important thing here is I'm fighting a Talos. I totally screw this up. So I'm doing pretty good against Talos. I'm winning at this point, basically. Overheating is obvious for guns, at least right here. But here, I actually feel like so confident that I'm worried the Talos is going to leave, like that he's going to like turn around and try to get away from me. And so I headed towards him, thinking, I need to catch this guy, he's going to leave. Which is a totally wrong, I think, the totally wrong thing to do. I think I should have kept range, because my optimal's like 30k, and his damage just gets higher the closer I get, because he's all in fall off until like 10k. So turning back in, I think I pumped his damage up a little bit and caused myself to get killed. Not to mention that if I was going to get killed anyway, if I'd have just kept burning in a straight line and he did veer away from me, I could just warp. So that was just greed. I just felt like I could have gotten a kill, and it made me like do something that was overly aggressive and not even smart. Like it wasn't even if I was thinking I want to be aggressive, that wasn't the right way to do it. So I don't know, I thought that was a really interesting fight. What we decided to do with Hawk's ship in that fight definitely could have been changed. The way I piloted my ship could have been changed. I think I could have stayed closer to the grid when the Talos was focused on Hawk, which would have let me get a head start on damage on him and probably gotten the kill. Although it wasn't until now the Basilisk shows up, or at least real late. So, the whole time, again, I was operating under the idea that it's just coming. Anyway, difficult engagement. Amar is awesome, though. Having really long optimal is so strong. It's like that Harb can do really well against a lot of like tier 3 BCs. Does great against cruisers. I think it's just a really strong ship. So anyway, that one's over. That's all for that. I thought of playing that with comms as well, so you guys could hear how frustrated I was when I, almost beat the Talos. But anyway, next engagement is a solo roam. I'm in a Ham Drake. It's, again, standard. It's like the Ham Drake I've always flown. I'll throw a fit up for you. But so I went a really long ways in this Ham Drake, and I got out to the system, and I think I'm just gonna start the clip now, because what happens basically is I'm just doing jumps out in the middle of nowhere where there's these stations. I jump a gate, and this is what I find: a Legion sitting at 0 on the gate. And so I reapproach. I think reapproaching is a smart thing to do here, because it gives me a chance to see what the Legion's gonna do without putting myself at risk. I don't know. I don't really want to like align and have the Legion turn out to be a combat pilot instead of just some goofball and kill me because I never got back to the gate. So this gives me a chance to see what's going on. What's going on is he's acting extremely aggressively. He's got missiles, and I don't think I can beat him straight up. I sort of have a tendency to be overly optimistic about beating Tech 3 cruisers with battle cruisers. It usually doesn't work out, so I decided to be a little more conservative here and leave. Not to mention a Drake showed up. So now I've got a Legion and a Drake chasing me. And right here, I actually took a second to warp because I was going to see if the Drake jumped in right away to see if I could maybe kill him. Anyway, so this is what I'm talking about, the fraps being messed up. So where this clip picks up, I think jumped another gate, so I moved up a system, jumped a gate, and there was a Crow and an Oracle. And then I warped to a station at 50, thinking maybe I can split them up, like maybe one thing will go one range and one thing will go another range, and I actually get a fight that way, because the Legion's still in the area as well. He's in local, actually, at Serra Cordova. And then the Oracle warps to 0, or warps to the same range I do. No, he warped to 70. I warped 50, he warped to 70. The Crow warps to 0. So that's what I wanted, except I have to close range on the Oracle before he picks up enough speed to outburn me, and this is so intense. It was like the most intense moment of this roam. I'm like at 14k web range, overheated web range is 13k, and I'm still at like closing range by 30 meters a second. You can see on radial there, and then just now he picks up enough speed to outburn me. So I don't make web range. That's like totally heartbreaking, especially because the Oracle's killing me, and then the Crow comes in and tackles me. So I immediately have to switch priorities to getting rid of the Crow so that I can get off grid. That seems obvious to me. I don't know if it's obvious to you guys, but like, you know, if you're not going to kill something, don't stay focused on it. Like, as soon as I know I'm not going to tackle the Oracle, the priority becomes getting rid of tackle on me so that I can actually leave. Which works out. Hamdrake's actually not bad at all at killing tackle, especially if you still have your drones. So kill a Crow real quick and then just warp off. No problem. And then I'm moving up. I'm running away from these guys because they got more and more stuff and were chasing me. So I'm running, you know, up several jumps, and I run into this Hurricane just sitting at 0 on a gate. And I don't know if it's because I wasn't paying attention or what. Like, I still don't actually know, but I think he's actually friends with the guys that were chasing me. But they're a few jumps back. Like, I kind of I dodged the system over, and anyway, run into this Hurricane. So I'll take a 1v1 with a random battlecruiser. That's fine. There's not too much to say about doing this other than I do have some choices about the way I manage. Like I think here it's worth killing ECM drones, using my drones to do that. It's going to be a long enough fight that they could turn it. Like, if he gets a jam or two, then I lose. But if I get rid of him, I make sure I hold a point and finish him off. So I go ahead and kill the ECM drones. The only other thing is the way I manage range, and I think there could be something to be said for like trying to stay at 8k or something like that, because his damage will potentially be a little lower than it would be if I was a 0. But I don't really worry about that. Just want to make sure he doesn't get away. And it looks like I'm winning anyway. The Hamdrake's very solid at just sitting at 0 and brawling. It's not going to be good against an active tank ship like, you know, a triple rep Merm or something is going to crush it, but it's just fine against Hurricanes, Harbingers. Yeah, anything that's not active, I guess. So I kill a Hurricane, yay! And nothing else really comes of that, except that right after I kill him, local fills up again with the people that were chasing me, the Legion, the Oracle. There was a slasher back at the station. Some of those guys start showing up in local, and at this point I was basically like, I'm kind of done. I might have moved up one more system or something, but then I was basically like, I'm just gonna stay safe and not worry about it. But then I got kind of bored of that. I'll wait till the clip starts. But so I had been safed in this system, not wanting to go to a gate where there was people, but then I saw a gate with nobody on it. I warped to it, went to jump, and of course right then a couple of their ships warped to the gate also. And that, you know, that just happens sometimes. You get sort of unlucky with timing. But so I have Slasher Oracle. The Legion isn't quite here yet, but they chase me through this gate. Here I just go ahead and warp off up to the next gate, thinking I can outrun them for a bit again and maybe isolate something. Just running away like this is always awesome. You might catch a tackler that's out ahead of its fleet. You might catch something like the Oracle that decloaks in a bad spot against you, and you can get a tackle on it and burn it down. So anyway, I just warp off that gate. They're not able to tackle me there, and I turn fraps off, but then I know when I'm coming out of warp, it turns out I'm landing in a bubble. Now, this is awesome. I don't know how you guys would generally react to this, but to me, this is like the most amazing lucky thing ever, because look what happens. Their whole fleet's going to land on top of me at 0 without realizing it. And what's chasing me? An Oracle. So he lands right at 0. No getting away this time. And that's fantastic, because that's, you know, these tier 3 BCs are terrible. Like, against my Drake, they're so terrible if I can actually scram web them. So that happens easily here. He tries to burn, but it's not going to happen. And he dies in like 5 volleys. Which is sweet. And I think that's something I like about 0-0 is there's a little more of this kind of terrain aspect, where sometimes you get unique grids based on bubbles mostly that can provide some interesting situations that usually wouldn't happen if bubbles weren't there. And a second Oracle comes. I kind of wish I still would have been at 0 on the bubble, but now again I'm in the same situation as before. There's going to be too much DPS on the grid, and I have to deal with tackle. So this Slasher's tackling me, and any of you new pilots wonder whether or not you can be useful, this slasher right here, whole fight hinges on what he does. My missiles are not very good at hitting him, obviously, when he's out at that range. They can probably reach that range just fine, but they just don't hit him very well. But I do get drones out, get drones on him, and then he comes inside web range. So then I overheat web him, and that causes the damage to pick up a bit. Like the lowered speed means my missiles and maybe my drones will do a little more damage than we were before, and that scares him. So then he takes off the other direction. I get to warp out, and that is a very successful solo roam kill. Crow, Hurricane, and Oracle. And I feel like, yeah, I wish that was all Fraps start to finish. Like, that would have been a great room to have on a live stream. But I still like sharing it. I kind of want to make the case that, solo roaming isn't about engaging 20 people at once necessarily. It's often figuring out how to get 20 people to, not that that was 20 people, but to get a group of people to make a couple mistakes to let you isolate a couple ships so that you can have little 1v1s one at a time. And I know there's tons of content that's been over that, but it's always cool when it works out. And it's especially cool when it works out with a ship that brawls. I feel like I'm sort of stuck in this mentality that everything has to kite. But when you do a good job moving grid to grid and sort of handling your positioning with warps, you can get stuff done with ships that only go 1,000 meters a second and have scrams and webs and tanks. And they're really fun to fly. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Before I drop this, I do want to give just a quick shout out to Somerblink for taking care of me always. I just can't express how awesome they are to their the people they sponsor. They're cool to me, and I know they're cool to other people they sponsor as well. So go check them out, and I hope you guys are having fun. I'll see you next time.